If you haven't seen this film yet, go. Just go. See it now. Don't wait for it to come out on streaming. It is worth all your money and time for Didnt alone. You can come back here when you've finished. Okay, now that you've seen it, or more likely ignored me, this is why I believe every filmmaker, no scratch that, every human being should watch this film in theaters before it's too late. Suzume is the newest film directed by Makoto Shinkai, the creator behind Your Name, The Garden of Words, Weathering with You, and countless more. And it's a film about a 17-year-old girl who gets caught up in a magical journey through Japan after meeting a mysterious young man. It's full of action, humor, and a whole lot more that I'll touch on later. The best way I can describe this movie, though, is epic. Now, disclaimer, this is the first Makoto Shinkai film I've ever seen, so I went into this completely blind. I'm not biased towards his other films. I've never seen Your Name. I've seen Weathering with You after this though. So far, Suzume is my favorite. Another disclaimer, I don't like anime. Sorry anime fans, but I bring this up for an important reason. You don't have to be an anime fan to enjoy this film. Now, I don't dislike all anime. Being a filmmaker, I absolutely love Studio Ghibli, which this film has some references to. And if you like Studio Ghibli, you'll love this movie. Right off the bat, obviously the animation is a spectacle. I mean, you can see it in the trailers. It's a literal definition of eye candy. If you went into the dictionary and searched up eye candy, the definition would be Suzume. It can almost be too much at times, where it's like a sensory overload. The traditional animation style is amazing, but Shinkai enhances it with flares and overlays that for me can either help or hurt the traditional animation. Along with this, there's some 3D animation which I didn't particularly like, but after a while you get used to it and it kind of blends in. I might have to create a whole other video breaking down the visuals of this movie because they're that good. The amount of work the animators put into this one film is staggering. Along with this, the film has an incredible score and sound design. The music in this film will have you listening to it for weeks, and though I won't go into detail, around the midpoint of the movie, there is a scene where the music expresses this horrifying yet beautiful phenomenon, perfectly capturing how fragile life is in an unpredictable world. Speaking of midpoint, this movie's pacing is a bit strange. It almost feels like two movies in one, which isn't a bad thing, but around the middle of the movie, it feels as though the movie leads up to this epic climax, then settles back down to this road trip, which can be somewhat confusing for lack of a better term. It's a bit jarring at first, but after a few minutes I was used to the pacing, but I've heard many others online felt the pacing was too slow. For me, it was fine, but maybe for you it might not be. This leads me into the story of Suzume. The characters of this movie are very well written. Suzume herself and many other characters are very helpful and caring. This may feel unrealistic to some Western viewers, but in Japan, the culture there is characterized by politeness, hard work, respect, and caring for others. All of these values are present in Suzume in one way or another. Along with this, there are many spiritual and god beings that show up in the film, and although I didn't mind the mystery behind these characters, others may want to know the importance of these characters or their heritage. For me personally though, I thought this enhanced the world because it made it feel so much bigger than if we were spoon-fed all the answers throughout the runtime. Now, I didn't know this while going into this film, but I don't think this spoils anything. This film was influenced by the earthquakes in Japan during 2011, and it touches on how it affected people as individuals. It covers this serious topic well, and it covers how losing people you love can affect your whole life, and it's done in a very beautiful way. This has to do with the resolution, and all I have to say is no spoilers, but it was very well done. Now I'm going to touch on some things that didn't work for me in this film. First off, we have the quote-unquote romance. Honestly, it's less of a romance and more of an unreciprocated crush, but I felt that the relationship between Soda and Suzume could have just been platonic and worked just as well, if not better. The second thing that didn't work for me in this movie was some of the anime melodrama. Now, I'm not talking about the ending that felt realistic, I'm more so talking about the romance thing again, but the dramatic parts of it. To be completely honest, those were the only two things that felt off. Everything else worked for me, and it worked really well. Okay, hot take for a second. I'm just gonna take a step back, take a breather. But I don't get why people keep saying this is a romance movie online. I mean, yes, there's a guy and a girl, and yes, the director usually makes love stories, but that's not really what this film's about at all. It's mainly about the action, the comedy. It's a road movie with a really good story about life and death. It's not really supposed to be a romance, and that's not the forefront of the film at all. I know he's mainly known for romances, but it doesn't feel like he was trying to make a romance with this one. It kind of makes me annoyed that people are looking for a romance with this film film even when the marketing clearly looks like an action movie, but that's just me. Anyway, sorry about that. Now I want to talk about my favorite parts of this movie. Number 1, hands down, Didnt. Now I saw the Japanese version, which I highly recommend because the voice actress for Didnt is adorable. All the other voice actors did an amazing job too, but I can't express enough that this kitten was one of the best parts of the movie. My heart was melting throughout the film every time she said Suzume, and this little cat made me so emotional. I just love it. One of the best parts of the movie for me. My second favorite part of this movie was the story. Now this story affected me greatly. Skip ahead if you don't want minor/major spoilers. I'll put a timestamp on screen, but this movie made me so emotional. It was the hardest I've ever tried not to cry in my entire life. I was shaking and my breathing was jagged. If it wasn't for the fact that it was just me and a few other random people in the theater, I would have started bawling. The reason for this, more spoilers hinting toward the plot. I'm gonna be a little bit vulnerable here, but I know what it's like to lose someone at such a young age, and for me this movie expressed what it feels like to tell yourself it'll be okay and show how far you've come and grown from past experiences. Anyway, of course, my third favorite thing is the visuals and music. It's just amazing. Like I said before, it's eye candy, and the soundtrack is an earworm. Even if you don't like the story, the characters, or the plot, the movie is well worth seeing for the visuals alone. But if you're anything like me, this film will change you. In the end, that is why I think everyone should go see this film in theaters. It's epic, you'll have a good time, and it might even relate to you on a deeper level. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, make sure to give it a like, and thanks for watching.